Hello. Uh, uh, a very good afternoon to. I hope it's afternoon in Australia. It's quite early in the morning in India. To the respected chair and all my fellow my fellow panelists and all the viewers who have kindly tuned in. Uh, uh, Today's presentation is on Ephemera Catalogues, bibliographical entries on Martyrs, and I would be dealing with this topic mainly through the mode of crowdsourcing of information, CSI, and the martyrs that I refer to would mostly be the political martyrs of Ireland and Bangladesh. So the study explores how online crowdsourcing of information is not only useful for ephemera cataloging in general, but also essential for martyr ephemera cataloging and bibliographical entries in particular. Online CSI relates to the two acts mentioned in the title: one, cataloging of numerous print ephemera, and two, providing resources for subsequent bibliographical entries on them. Thus, CSI would contribute to both data collection and data analysis. Now, both collection and analysis of ephemera on martyrs are imbued with the contestations that characterize the nature of martyrdom itself. Online CSI addresses these contestations in the creation of catalogues and subsequent bibliographical entries. To probe these contestations, this study conducts a comparative exploration of martyr ephemera archives of Ireland and Bangladesh and develops the modalities and significance of online CSI with reference to various print ephemera. Online crowdsourcing of online CSI has been used for cataloging of numerous print ephemera for years now, such as one example being cataloging of playbills through marking and transcription. An example could be British Library's 2021 project in the Spotlight, which enables users to access and explore playbills ranging from the 1730s Britain by marking out names of well-known and less-known titles of plays, personal names, popular songs, to transcribing of these details for the digital collections. Now, ephemera archives and their catalogues in Ireland and Bangladesh are somewhat interactive. The second sort of slide shows a sort of a sample catalog from the political ephemera collection of Peter Moloney. It's one of the largest ephemera archive holdings based in Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. Includes numerous items, posters, leaflets, pamphlets, periodicals, images of banners, and also the banners as physical objects. So it's a screenshot of the Loyalist banners catalog. Now these banners have been used as part of the defence wars waged by the Loyalist community in Northern Ireland to remain part of the United Kingdom, itemized in terms of, as we can see, the group to which these belong, single line descriptions highlighted in yellow, date, location, broad themes such as historic, religious, political, and women. If we see the title of the other spreadsheets, just by looking a bit towards the downwards, it indicates that the same material has been itemized according to the various loyalist Protestant lodge names, the English and Scottish lodges, these Protestant fraternal societies, and then this RBP lodge names, the Royal Black Protestant Societies. All of these. So the point is that when I had to search for ephemera related to loyalist martyrs and martyrdom events, I had to physically go through the collection. And incidentally, there was much more material in the boxes where ephemera is usually kept. There were many stray items that were not catalogued, such as multiple photographs of the same banners, booklets on loyalist banners, carried during the celebration of specific martyr events. So it came in much more, it sort of made much more sense. This next slide is basically shows the range of sources from where martyr ephemera could actually be accessed in Ireland and in Bangladesh. It includes, as we can see, a number of conventional sources such as libraries and museums, even sporadic ones, sites such as memorial sites, organizations, individual collections, and souvenir shops. I'll just interrupt and share another file of mine. Yes, this is. I hope it's visible. This is basically from the bibliography pages of my PhD dissertation. I didn't include it in the PPT because my PhD viva is not yet complete. So it's basically ephemera from other sources like private archives and papers, and I've just included the statistics of how many references are there from each country. As we can see, there's more, quite more from references from Bangladesh, because Northern Ireland has done has worked a lot towards institutional archiving of ephemera, and in Bangladesh it's mostly in the holding of individuals and organizations and communities, and basically local regional libraries which do not know quite the process, and do not even have the resources for that matter for an institutionalized archiving. So it's mostly, and those local libraries are owned by private individuals, so it's basically private archives in that sense. And then there are ephemera holdings on digital platforms for officials websites. There are, as we can see, all four references are from Northern Ireland, because it's mainly official institutionalized archiving. From social media, the kind of ephemera that I could access, again, more references from Bangladesh, because from the 2000, from the beginning of 2000, the introduction of the internet, and now Bangladesh has sort of political movements, say the 2013 Shahbag movement, almost channelized, initiated and then channelized through the social media. So people in the villages, people in the towns use social media for sort of communication of political ideas, creation of political movements, in a sort of channelizing political revolutions. So quite intensive use of social media in that regard, but of course based mostly in the regional language, that is Bangla. And other websites and blogs, again, there are more references from Bangladesh. Bangla language, the regional language blogs in Bangladesh are a very powerful tool of of of, of sort of celebrating or sort of de-glorifying martyrs. They are quite vocal about these sort of points. And finally, this ephemera, the range of ephemera that can be accessed locally all over the places. So sort of when I visited Ireland or Bangladesh for my field studies, the kind of ephemera that I could photograph, leaflets, posters, pamphlets, uh, I could photograph them more in Ireland. The number is almost double in Northern Ireland, because even though there are different communities, and each community have their own sort of martyrs, one opposing the other, and they live in different spaces in the same country, that visual space is allowed in for both the communities. The number is almost less than it's almost half in Bangladesh, as we can see, because the present government, the ruling government, when they put out, their posters, their pamphlets, their leaflets celebrating their martyrs, who had contributed to the 1971 liberation war, they make a conscious effort to remove or erase the ephemera associated with an opposing political party which had been in power before, which had their own martyrs, but they do not get the visual space parallelly. So it's either or mostly in Bangladesh. So basically, this is what I had to share from the dissertation. Coming back to my PPT again. Yeah. Yes. So basically, so while online crowdsourcing of information may be easily done in Bangladesh, in Northern Ireland, it's required all the more because the conflict, and I mean the martyr conflict is still evident in both the countries and very powerfully so. Next, I move to a bit about the methodology of this of how online crowdsourcing of information can fit in this cataloging and bibliographic entries. Since ephemera are minor transient documents mostly produced by an institution or organization, it's important to know the institutional perspective of the producers of ephemera, as well as the individual perspective of the holders of ephemera, thereby comprehending it both as a public and personal document. And for the latter, the oral interpretations regarding ephemera should become an intrinsic part of ephemera studies and its cataloging. So oral interviews can sort of supplement understanding of material objects. And secondly, when ephemera are used to gauge people's understanding of martyrs and martyrdom in terms of their daily lives, locating such ephemera becomes difficult since they are very minor and transient documents. So in this regard, the snowball method, based on the period of study and the area of activity, is convenient, and CSI is an integral can become an integral part in this method. It is essentially a collection of diverse range of information from one resource referring to others. So it enables quicker identification of related ephemera and a focused selection of bearer of martyr memories. And then we move on to the kind of information that may be crowdsourced, beginning with crowdsourcing of personal information. Just a minute, please. Yes. Most martyr ephemera either originate from the personal world of the martyr or have personal information on it. For example, this slide shows the letters addressed by two Irish Republican Army prisoners, Rory O'Connor and Joe McKelvey, before their martyrdom. And these were found at the Irish Hickey sort of Eileen Hickey Irish Republican History Museum. These letters were donated by the Mountjoy prison authorities, where these officers of the Irish Civil War were shot dead in 1922. Now, the crowdsourcing of information from family, friends, acquaintances would explain the bond that these martyrs had shared with them so that we can understand their response to the sacrifice undertaken by these officers. Rory's address mentions friends such as Mellows, McKelvey, and DeBarry, who would be executed alongside him. And crowdsourcing of information from the families of such friends would explore the reasons for the close connection between the compeers and how they sort of acted together as part of the Republican ideal of martyrdom. And McKelvey, Joe McKelvey, whose address to his own mother immediately follows that of his friend O'Connor, is a witness of a camaraderie in death. Now, while mass responses from friends and acquaintances may be sought from various organizations, and there are many community organizations relating to a sort of Republican ex-prisoners and who support their family members. One would be Tar Anal, which is located just alongside Eileen Hickey sort of Irish Republican History Museum. And while these organizations may provide community responses, they may also enable us as outsiders to interact with individual family members so that we can then get individual responses from them, which can differ, and they do differ quite a bit from the community responses of organizations. And we also sort of understand when we actually visit their physical homes to what extent, say, these letters or other ephemera actually find a space in their everyday living now, what space and importance it had then, and what space and importance it has now. Now, in Bangladesh, personal letters of martyrs are also addressed to the nation, like this one handwritten letter that we have on the screen here. Here, crowdsourcing of information is not just about encouraging the crowds of the present generation in the spirit of the freedom struggle, but also creating an awareness of the divisive elements. When I was talking about the visual space and the representation of ephemera in Bangladesh. I was talking about the divisive elements, the different political parties um, that dub themselves as pro and anti-liberation war according to where they presently stand. I mean, everyone would like to call themselves pro-liberation, but they still differ. Uh, so this letter also talks about of creating an awareness of divisive elements in the present generation that afflicts the the spirit of the freedom struggle. The last line of the letter by Jahanara Imam, she's also known as Shahid Jalani, the mother of martyrs, is an appeal to the citizens of present Bangladesh to root out war criminals as she had done. And here, bibliographic information is mostly based on Jahanara Imam's role as a coordinator of the Forum for Secular Bangladesh and the Trial of War Criminals of 1971. And she had been a founder member of this organization. And it's still one of the most powerful organizations relating to martyrdom, sort of who can be categorized as a martyr, who can be categorized as not a martyr and therefore a war criminal. It's a very powerful committee till date in Bangladesh, but mostly associated with one political party, which is the present ruling political party in Bangladesh. However, a crowdsourcing of information regarding divisive elements mentioned in the letter is a raging issue in the archives of Bangladesh. A CSI could be enabled from various political quarters and their takes on the 1971 Liberation War, but the bibliographic entries would be different in Bangladesh because the institution containing the archives have a necessity to maintain both an overt neutrality in relation to the political forces of the country, as well as a covert affinity to the ruling political forces, to those same political forces, because of funding and other sort of very practical and economic reasons. So, for instance, the archives in this Liberation War Museum officially contain documents, and they sort of maintain a very strict stance that we contain documents only till 1971 war, that is of the Liberation War year. And because they do not want to get involved in the conflicting political histories that ravaged the country after the 1971 war, leading to a coup and the assassination of the prime minister of that country, uh, and the establishment of the so-called anti-liberation forces as the political authority. The bibliographic entries, as we can see, do not only contain information, but celebratory accolades that related to figures and events. There are emotive ways in which words are used, like genocide, descriptions are used, like brutal killing, graphic details are used, like in the diary entries. Um, it's a very conscious way of emotive cataloging and bibliographical entry. Uh, the cataloging is done based on specific associations of events. So even if we see sort of the object donor list in the official website of the Liberation War Museum, and sort of anyone can access it, it's open access, we see almost 509 entries of martyrs, all of whom had connections with or directly belonged to the Awami League, the present ruling political party in Bangladesh. So, all these references that we can see on screen, all those sort of over 500 references in the Ephemera Catalogue, it's mostly aligned towards a certain political legacy, so to say. Now, but the point is that a crowdsourcing of information should work towards sort of in this situation towards an inclusion of diverse, even divisive voices in bibliographic entries. And this wouldn't just it's not just to make the politics of archiving consciously subversive, but also to include comprehensive voices of people, because leaflets and posters of opposition parties, like the Bangladesh National Party, which is the opposition of the Awami League, also had their sort of huge audience. And in this regard, the regional archives in Bangladesh are much more broad-based. So in this next slide that we see a leaflet from the youth wing of this Bangladesh National Party. And this heritage archives, it's based not in the capital city of Dhaka like the Liberation War Museum, but in Rajshahi. It's quite far from Dhaka. And it's maintained by a professor of history of Rajshahi University, Mahabubur Rahman, and it includes sort of diverse ephemera from posters, pamphlets, calendars, festoons, periodicals of the last 50 years. So consciously after the 1971 war, if Liberation War Museum is till 1971, Heritage Archives would be after it, consciously after it. But even though it includes much of 1971 also, and the focus has always been on the local rather than the state history. And since it's local, it includes political and religious affiliations of the local in all its manifestations. So objects are sort of ephemera from diverse affiliations are included. Next, I move on to the crowdsourcing of public information. Print ephemera are popular documents because they were circulated en masse among the people. This slide, next slide, shows a speech booklet on the left that was circulated among the crowds who stood witness to the trial and death of Roger Casement for his participation in the Easter 1916 Rising in Ireland. Dublin-based publisher and supporter of Irish independence, Fergus O'Connor, printed this booklet after his release from prison, and then it was sold for 2 pence each among the people. Now, he was the first one to use the word executed for Casement's sentence, which the British government had dubbed as a criminal's killing. So, and this word motivated the crowd to structure a response to Casement as a martyr. So the voice of the publisher as a creator of an ephemera, nurturer of its narrative content, and a mediator to other related ephemera is important. So crowdsourcing regarding them would also be useful. Next, the thronging crowd that is so much of an important presence in Casement's narrative of martyrdom is also evidenced in the right, the image on the right, which is a photo collage card showing the crowd outside Casement's trial, and is his sort of which sentenced him finally to death. And there, along with an image of Casement and his peers, crowdsourcing of public information in this regard pertains to the profile and the reactions of such crowds from the various available ephemera of those times. Mass information may be usefully sourced from various community groups related to such heroes and dedicated to such heroes and events. When the subject is a group of people and their mass response, then crowdsourcing of information from common people in the present times and their reactions about the crowds of the past becomes an important input that can be usefully included in any bibliographic entry. Generation of information from the crowds is pertinent to ephemera in general, but martyr ephemera in particular, when ephemera are objects of sale themselves, or they initiate a kind of sell and gaining of a sort of collecting of funds. Now, this slide shows a subscription leaflet issued by the National Graves Association of Dublin to collect money from the people of Ireland, as well as Irish exiles in America, England, Scotland, to erect a memorial in memory of martyr Thomas Williams. He's from the Republican side, is a Republican martyr, along with local martyrs of the place where he lived, County Antrim in Northern Ireland. Now, crowdsourcing of information regarding ephemera produced by both the National Graves Association as well as the County Antrim local funerary associations would explore the nature of the leaflet as institutional ephemera. But this kind of an ephemera also explores memorialization at the level of the grassroots, both in countries of exile and home, and also explores patriotism as something related to the economics of the everyday world. I mean, why would people contribute to this cause? How much would they contribute? Who are the people who are contributing? So, online crowdsourcing of information regarding the reasons people for these many sort of causes and reasons would make bibliographic entries of martyrs much more comprehensive. Moving on to the next, crowdsourcing of another kind of information, the private information. Now, crowdsourcing of information for personal and institutional ephemera is different from that, from those ephemera that are part of private archives. Now, while Northern Ireland contains more of institutional ephemera, in Bangladesh, martyr ephemera mostly belong to individuals, as we had sort of mentioned a bit before, uh, who also contain copies of official institutional ephemera with themselves that are either not part of the state archives, one, because the nature of archives change with each ruling government, or they may not be easily accessed. So you are coming from which affiliation, which archive you want to access, it sort of all needs to add up before the work can be completed. So this slide is shows a copy of a gazette, and it's an official gazette regarding the transfer of the remains of the dead body of a martyred intellectual freedom fighter, Professor Abdul Wahab Talukdar. Now, this gazette notification was issued by the Ministry of Liberation War Affairs of Bangladesh. The ministry has undertaken many steps to bring back the remains of the martyred from countries like India and Pakistan. Since most of these activities are part of ongoing operations of the state, therefore documentation related to these are mostly classified in nature. So this document has been accessed from the personal Facebook page of the son of this martyred intellectual, courtesy Mr. Mizan Talukdar. And then finally, I move on to a short point about the crowdsourcing of sale information. So when ephemera become part of archives, they are not objects of sale, but majority of ephemera remain as collectibles with various non-profit organizations, auction houses, and gift item shops. Sale information reveal the popularity of many such information among people, whether as expensive, finer keepsakes from auction houses if we are rich enough, or small everyday artifacts that we can sort of purchase from a gift item shop. So crowdsourcing of such sale information would also be useful for in a bibliographic entry for sort of for work of researchers. And the concluding point regarding the significance and the relevance of martyr studies and the creation of digital ephemera archives, martyrs are personas of conflict. It is not only the event of death during conflict, but the creation and debate and discussion following the death that makes a person into a martyr. Thus, martyrs and martyr ephemera always remain amidst conflict situations. Institutions that house the ephemera may be banned or attacked or destroyed. Individuals having the ephemera may be forced to give up such controversial documents. I mean, some may call it controversial. Archivists collecting ephemera may be accused of being politically and ideologically prejudiced towards a certain group. What kind of holdings you have tells a lot about your institution and its ideology. And witnesses who hold ephemera or may know about them may die because these are objects of the past and very difficult to sort of for these minor transient documents to survive. Therefore, digital ephemera archives are the need of the hour, and the online crowdsourcing of information is a mode for its easy creation, dissemination, and of course, debate and discussion. Thank you.